Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
I'm Professor Meg.
And today we are reviewing The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Ascension. I keep getting stuck on the name, like it's Ascension, an Ascension game, Ascension, Lord of the Rings, whatever it is. It's Ascension, but with The Lord of the Rings, it's going to be both a retheme as well as some gameplay changes. Although, Meg, I believe you are the resident Ascension expert.
I would say, if you could have told Meg like 15 years ago that there would be a Lord of the Rings Ascension, she would not have believed you. I think she would have said they made that for me, and I think they did.
Now, I should note, before we dive into an overview, this is a prototype, all rules and components subject to change. I believe art and things, final subjects, subject to final approval and all those things. We'll also have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below, if you can go and check that out. And in fact, currently, as we film this, the campaign is currently in endgame, which is a thing where basically every 10 minutes, or if anyone backs or adds to their pledge in the last 10 minutes, it resets the clock. And depending, this is the weird part, if Endgame is still going tomorrow morning, because we're filming this Thursday night, if Endgame is still going tomorrow morning, then this video is going up Friday while the Endgame is live. If the Endgame is over, then I'll probably just put this video up Saturday instead, because we'll see. But go ahead and check it out.
Behind the scenes.
You basically have possibly minutes from when you see this video to get this game if you are interested in it. And also, speaking of which, we also did a gameplay on the channel. If you want to see a gameplay between myself and Meg playing the competitive mode of the game, you can go and check that out, link down below. And with that, do you want to do an overview?
Absolutely. So Ascension is at its heart a deck building game where players are trying to collect honor. So honor are these crystals here that are represented by a star, and you're going to be gaining it in two different ways. So one of them is going to be the cards that you're gaining to your deck, where some of them are going to give it to you with the ability. They're all going to have a value that they're worth, but you're also going to be taking out monsters that are going to give you honor as well. So endgame is going to be triggered when this honor pool is emptied, and that's going to all happen with players taking their turns with a hand of 5 cards, where you have your apprentices and militia, which represent the basic things that you'll be doing, where this is adding your militia to fight against the monsters, this is your runes to purchase cards for their cost up at the top, adding it to your deck, and you're basically going to spend your hand of all 5 cards, gain what you can, and then draw 5 new cards before your next turn.
Now, over here, we're going to have this corruption mechanic, I believe. Is it called corruption?
Yes.
I believe it's called corruption. This is basically where you're going to be, as you go up on this track over here, you'll earn various rewards. Some cards will get stronger in different ways. But at the end of the game, this is all going to feed into Sauron's strength, which basically both is going to reduce your own score, which makes it more competitive. But also, in extreme cases, if everyone leans too far into it, Sauron might actually win the game.
Yeah.
Now, I should note, we've only played this game in the competitive mode. That's all we have access to as far as the rules go for the prototype. There is a cooperative mode. Did you know there's a cooperative mode?
There is also a solo mode?
A solo. There's solo and cooperative.
Yeah.
I don't think we had access to that, but there is that. There is all that. But just so you know, we're not talking about that because we didn't have any experience with that. Although I will say, selfishly, I am more excited for that than the competitive mode, just given the nature of this kind of gameplay experience.
Also, this is the Fellowship of the Ring, so there's also the Two Towers and Return of the King, which are different.
Yeah. But with that, we're going to go ahead and dive into our review of what we like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what we like. Meg, you are an Ascension fan, so we can start with you. Like, what do you like about either Ascension or this in relation to Ascension?
So Ascension was my first deck building game, and I love the speed of it, and I think that this kept up with that in Ascension, you're building up to these better and better turns, because certain things are going to start chaining together, you're going to start drawing into stronger cards in your deck, and you're going to have these really cool turns. Perhaps you have, like, constructs out there, like, adding to what you're doing. And something that I've always noticed about Ascension is that I feel the honor pool that you are working toward, emptying, by the time it is emptied and endgame is triggered, you've had like 1 or 2 turns that feel crazy. So you hit that point where you do have these very cool turns, but it's not too crazy where you're having, too much after that. So I do feel that the pacing is really well done, and I find that matched in this, that I found the Fellowship of the Ring kept up with that par of what you expect to see from Ascension, where you do build up to these pretty cool turns. You have a couple of things that will chain together, and you have like these, the different alliances that will work together. And yeah, I think the pacing works really well.
Yeah, for me, there are several things about Ascension in general, and then of course the specifics. This one, like Meg mentioned, there's very strong, powerful turns as you build up your synergies. I generally like the alliance mechanic where you can get extra cards and combo together as you attempt to build towards those. I will say I like a lot of the changes I've seen in this, and I should note I've only really played like some versions of Ascension, so I don't know which elements of this are in other versions of Ascension. But the basic, the events that the deck is going to have that have a Sauron kind of attacking the players or having an effect that affects the players in different ways, I enjoy that. The One Ring is a mechanic that boosts your corruption at a cost. I really enjoyed this.
In fact, is very unique.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a change where you can try to feed into getting the One Ring, but then it slowly rises you up the corruption track. You don't really have a say in the matter. It's just going to go up. Speaking of which, I like the corruption track. I like this aspect of moving up this track and feeding into various benefits you're going to get, but the cost of that loss of points, that provides a nice little element to the game. And in general, I just like the thematic elements. Like for me, there is something different about buying random cultist character of something I don't know versus going, ooh, Gandalf, I don't know, Lord Cerebrun or Celeborn or whoever, the Balrog, we're fighting the Balrog. All of those elements just add to the immersion into the game. I've said about many games in general that when I care about the cards, it enhances the gameplay, and this version of Ascension makes me care about the cards more than the basic Ascension does.
Yeah, there are definitely elements taken from different parts of Ascension where there is multi-unite and things where you'll have those banners, but I completely agree that was something I really loved, was that it felt like there's a fellowship allegiance or an elvish allegiance, and so when you're using those together, I had both of those in my deck, so when you're using it on a single turn, you feel like you're part of the fellowship and you're an elf because you're doing all these things. So I agree that it does take a lot of classic Ascension elements and tie it together with the story. And I did put one of the events on top too, where there are events in Ascension, but the Eye of Sauron, these ones really affected this track here. And this track I thought was really cool that a lot of these cards referenced it, that there was more cards referencing it than I expected. That I think that the way it pulls with that and whether you really go high or low on this track was really interesting.
And the score does matter a lot. Like, it's one of those things, sometimes when you have these corruption elements, a game can make it almost too easy to be like, well, yes, of course you're going to receive negative points, but it's still worth doing the bad thing because obviously the game wants you to do the bad thing, it just wants you to feel like you're losing points. You can check out our gameplay, but you definitely feel the hit of the negative points in this game. So your cards are better, your cards are stronger, your combos are better, but losing 25, 40 points to the end of the game is a very hefty chunk of your points, and especially if you're playing a larger player count, a 3 or 4 player game, and having Sauron win because of that, that could be a punishing way to lose. As far as what you don't like in the game,
I don't know. To me, this is very classic Ascension, where I did feel with the corruption track, it was a pretty big swing that, spoiler alert for the gameplay, but I did feel very safe after seeing what was happening throughout the game. So that's nothing really negative against it. Maybe it's a little bit more negative against gameplay of, certain choices when players make that choice. But
you are a hardcore Ascension player and I'm not, so that may have filtered into the differences as well.
I just didn't want to be corrupted.
Yeah, that's a thing. For me, I don't think there's anything I dislike about this version of the game. Possibly, I guess the one asterisk I should add is the Orc Slayer mechanic. I definitely felt through our plays that we didn't really see that fleshed out. That's a weird one, though, because
I believe that's a rule that's, in flux right now.
Exactly. They're in the middle of changing and messing with it, so because of those changes, it's one of those things where I definitely is the only thing I'd be critical of this version specifically. But again, it's in flux, it's changing, prototype review and all that. For me, the bigger thing is less about Ascension Lord of the Rings and more about Ascension in general. I've never been as much on the Ascension train relative to some other deck builders. I've always thought it was fine, and some of those elements still carry through to this. Even though I think this is the better version, at least for me, some of those elements carry through. I'm not as big of a fan of a rotating card market in deck building games where you're kind of getting whatever shows up as opposed to being able to build a cohesive strategy. That element to me is magnified when you have enemies and a card you're trying to acquire. When you have both those things in play, because it's no longer just about what's on the table. It's also about, hey, I have a ton of strength, but also I can't buy things because I can't fight things because there aren't really enemies around. The game does give you a basic enemy, but there's a big difference between that and having the actual enemies to fight. Similarly, you can have a assortment of cards at lower cost or higher cost when that's not the right fit for you. So I've always found this style of deck builder to be a little bit more fun, but victim to those kinds of swings in the tempo of things. So my main critiques really just come down to Ascension critiques as opposed to this version of Ascension, which this version for me was just a better version of Ascension.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like, I don't have many critiques of Ascension, but one thing that I do miss that was a mechanic I wish was added to this version is the energy shards, where that's a card that you can use for its mechanic, but it also lets you draw another card. That I think that would have just been something cool to see added into this, but that's just a personal preference.
And it's worth noting, again, like we said earlier, we don't know what's in the other versions. Yes. There's 3 iterations of this, so I have no clue what mechanics are being added.
Yeah.
That would be fun. I don't know. How did that insurance work?
So you can, like, you gain them to have, like, a certain threshold of them each turn to spend, kind of like other things. Okay. But as you play them, you draw, and they get placed out and can get stacked on things that, cards. Like, as you get the card, you can get, like, 3 of them or something. Fun. Yeah. They're interesting.
Cool. Which brings us to final thoughts. For me, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Ascension. For me, ultimately, this falls into that weird place where it is the best version of Ascension I've played. A lot of those things are going to be the thematic elements. A lot of the things are going to be the small gameplay shifts. Like I said already, I really enjoyed the One Ring, the corruption track, the events, and just, of course, the theme of the various characters. And the faction elements. Are the faction elements in base Ascension? Those faction interplays?
Base Ascension, I think not. There are things that will, like, relate to others. Like, if you have a Hedron construct, it'll help you with putting other things like that into play. But that Unite thing is something that comes a little later. Ones.
Yeah, so all of those elements for me are just better versions of Ascension. So overall, I like this version of Ascension more than I have others. For me, though, it still does have some of the, I guess, not necessarily weakness so much as preferences around deck builder games. So I'm going to be coming in at a 3.5 out of 5. I enjoyed this. I do want to see what's more in the other versions of this and what it adds to the things, while still having some of those elements of Ascension that didn't resonate as much with me.
And for me, I think it's no secret, I really enjoy this style of game. I think for a deck builder that's just a deck builder, this is so snappy and smooth, and like I said, I really enjoy the pacing of these, that I feel that regardless of the cards that you're purchasing or what you choose to kind of go toward, you do kind of work up toward these really powerful turns, and that's kind of when the game ends. So it doesn't get too crazy, that you feel really cool and accomplished before, you know, clearing out this pool of honor. And for me, like, not to get emotional, but they took 2 things that I love, and I think they did Lord of the Rings justice. That this One Ring was very cool to interact with. You kind of didn't want to touch it. It's dangerous, but it's cool and helpful. I think with the characters that come out that you see, you know, here we have like Balrog and Gandalf, that I think with the things that they did to bring Lord of the Rings to the game, just made the game better. So for me, I'm going to come in at a 4.5 because I love these games.
As far as other game recommendations, if you are interested in a card game type Lord of the Rings game, but in a different vein, check out Lord of the Rings War Familiar. What's it called now? The Battle Familiar, the War one, the 2-player war game.
Sorry.
I'm blanking.
You mean the Duel
Seven
for
Wonders
Middle Earth?
Duel variant. Duel for Middle Earth, thank you. The Duel for Middle Earth, if you're interested in another rethemed version of an existing game that's focused very heavily on cards.
There's been a lot of Lord of the Rings games.
Check out Duel for Middle Earth from an Asmodee branch company.
And I'm going to suggest, I started off with Ascension, loved it, and a game that blew my mind after that was Dune. So I'll recommend now Dune Imperium Uprising. It takes what you would love about this kind of deck building, and it adds worker placement to it.
Excellent. And with that, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
I'm Professor Meg.
And have a good one.
Bye.